So, I'm Will, I'm the bookgeek, and here is the long-awaited Q&A video. So, let's do this sort of podcast style, shall we? So, my first question was from AM Levers on Twitter, and it was, what book has recently surprised you? It can be in a good way or a bad way. So, in a good way, a book that I recently read was Once Upon a River. I knew I would like it, because it's the kind of genre that I read, but actually, I was genuinely surprised how good it turned out to be. So, yes. Another question was by the wonderful Georgina Springate on Twitter. She is a fantastic writer. And she asked me, what made you want to start your YouTube channel? That is a hard one to answer, because when I look back on it, maybe I started it for the wrong reasons. But I think what I wanted to do when I started it was talk about the books that I love, because there was no one beyond the most visible part of Booktube was a very generic YA base, and there was no one talking about books that I was reading or interested in, so that's where it came from. Now, from Faye Phillips from Twitter, what makes a book memorable for you in a good way? It can be two extremes, either character or just the right book at the right time, a good story, good characters. Also, things like good writing as well. That's one of my weaknesses. Really good in-depth writing kind of makes my brain tingle. The one question I got on Instagram from, and I can't find who posted it. Anyway, I've got the question though. A book you would love so much you immediately wanted to reread it. You know what? There are loads I could put on that risk. Harry Potter, I love. His Dark Materials, though, definitely, I will say it's a book I read it and I wanted to go, yes, reread it immediately, and I did. So, another question from Twitter, and I can't find your name. Correction, this question is from YouTube itself. Hey, so comparing today's fantasy and science fiction genres, except George R. Martin and some others, and those of the mid to late 1900s, Tolkien, so on, and others, what differences do you notice, good and bad? For me, early authors were much more careful about the content and took their time to research. But the fantasy authors are just pushing out books like fast food now with no effort being put into originality or details. I actually agree with you 100%. I see a lot of that in fantasy, and I think the big problem is, and science fiction, is that the people that have come before everyone's trying to emulate. And I think a lot of people are more scared to do something original. What I will say though is, I do agree with you. I think in the earlier science fiction, earlier fantasy, tended, because there was nothing that really came before it, people were a little bit more thought out and maybe let more of their own imagination out and weren't so held back. A Night Owl's Book Reviews and Others from YouTube. If the author was or is a terrible person, in your opinion, can you separate the book from the author, or do you forgo that altogether? I can separate the author from the person, the writer from the work, I should say. It's to me, your work is nothing to do with you as a human being, and a lot of young people, especially in the YA set, do forget that just because the author might be a bit of a twat, or just because someone writes a story, it goes both ways, that where a character is not particularly nice, they think that character is the author. So, yeah, that's my opinion anyway. I mean, there are writers like the guy that wrote Ender's Game is a colossal and utter dick. and I hate Ender's Game, but not because the author is a complete bastard. So, yes. Ashley Campbell on YouTube. What are your favourite fandoms? Harry Potter and the 100 are mine. And she also asked me, what is your next Funko Pop to buy? Just bought Wayne and Garth Funko set from Wayne's World. Loving it. I don't really do fandoms. I find fandoms can be extremely toxic because the most vocal members of fandoms tend to be idiots. And I find they can be very gatekeepery and quite toxic, and that irritates me. Though I'm a Harry Potter geek, His Dark Materials, Assassin's Creed, that kind of thing, Nintendo in general. So yeah. My next Funko Pop, I'm not sure yet. There's a couple on the list that I've made. I want the Britney Spears one from when she did Slave for You with the snake, because that's so cool. You know, that is a very cool performance. Yeah, she was lip-syncing, but that was still cool. Jack-a-Rock and Zanoodles on, I hope I said your name right, on YouTube asked me, are there times you wish you hadn't read something or could unread something, or do you value reading experience regardless of how bad or unenjoyable it is? Some of the books I liked as a teenager I cringe at define who I am a little bit, that phase. What I find genuinely quite funny about that whole thing is that these books help define me, but I'm a DNFer. If there is a book that I don't like, I'm just not going to read it. I'm not going to continue. Though I do give it more than 5 pages, I will say that. So, I also mentioned this Q&A in my Booktube Unpopular Opinions videos, and the wonderful Book Invasion commented, look out, call out culture, lynch mob, no. So much sarcasm. But he asked the questions, what's your dream car? Aston Martin. Anything Aston Martin based, I do like. I also like, but to be a realist, I like Mini Coopers. I like smart cars. I like quite small. Would you rather have teleportation or invisibility? Teleportation. Just because there are so many people that I want to meet around the world that I know that through the internet, but will probably never meet because of that. And if you were to cast, who would you cast as yourself in the biography of your life, biopic of your life? That's a really hard one. You know what? Probably Shia LaBeouf, or LaBeouf, however you say his last name. I think he's just got the right level of crazy to play me. JD Estrada, a fantastic writer. A random cue for your Q&A. How tall are you? I am 5'7" and a bit inches. I am so short. I mean, even a men's short jean is too long for me in the legs, so yeah, I'm a short ass. How has the dynamic been using a kilt? You know what? Kilts are the most comfortable thing on the planet. I literally mean that. They are genuinely the most comfortable piece of clothing I think I own, so who doesn't love a kilt? Obscure band that you enjoy. There is a band called Envy and Other Sins. They only did one album. They were quite local to me. They were very good, and they kind of vanished, basically. They did one album and vanished. Fantastic band, though. Best library you've ever been to? That is extremely difficult. That is very, very difficult, because I've been to some spectacular libraries in my time. I couldn't list them. So, I also got asked on YouTube by Lattes and Mockingjays. Her question was, are you a coffee person? Yes. There's no way around that. I've had like 4 cups already this morning, so I'm feeling quite bouncy. Your favourite movie? A movie, I don't know if it's necessarily my favourite, because that tends to change. But a film that I love is called Hackers, and it's a fantastic film. Your top 5 favourite characters? Azrael from His Dark Materials, Ezio from Assassin's Creed, and probably Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird. I got asked by Bookish Vibes, do you have a girlfriend / boyfriend? As of doing this Q&A, I have a boyfriend. Arianda C asked me, what did you study in university? I went to college. UK college and university are different things, and there's a whole, I'm not sure if you're American or British, but it's a whole different thing. But I did art. I did art design, I did photography, graphics design, fashion design, and that's it. So yeah, I kind of did a multitude of things. What is your favourite band or musical artist? My favourite band is Depeche Mode. They are a fantastic band and just amazing. And my favourite solo artist is Madonna. Long story short, but I'm a huge fan of hers. Top 5 science fiction and fantasy books of all time. Oh, why did you ask me that hard question? I mean, Harry, I don't know if it's necessarily a top 5, but Nevernight Chronicles is spectacular. His Dark Materials, the Harry Potter series, Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to think of other books, because there's loads that I could put on this list. I'm going to have to come back to this. I'm going to do a video on this, so well, you'll see. So, I was also asked by Gail Daltrey. Here we go, question time. How much prep do you do for your videos? A bit. I bullet point what I'm going to say. I might have a script, and then I'll elaborate as I go. I always know what I'm going to say, and I do like to set everything up and try and make it look as good as possible. Do you underline, highlight, or make notes in your books? No. I don't really touch books. You don't put notepads in books. You don't put pens near books. You don't fold pages. You don't annotate. I detest annotation in books. And highlighter, yeah, evil. Is your favourite genre fantasy? No, my favourite genre is probably historical fiction or literary fiction. I don't necessarily, I would say fantasy is pretty much up there, but it's not my favourite. It's not my go-to by any means. And bonus question, is the last one a totally dumb question? Ha ha ha. No, it's not. It's actually a very valid question. So, Franklin Kendrick? What is your favourite time to read? Usually travelling, long train journeys. I can just switch off and read a book. That's usually where I do most of my reading. How long does a reading session last for you? A reading session can last anything from 20 minutes to 2 hours. It depends on what I'm reading, depends on my mood as well. And where do you like to read the most? Usually travelling. Like I said in the previous question, it's just my favourite way of killing time. I don't tend to read at home a lot, oddly. I'm not a person that's going to sit in the living room reading a book. Partly because there is no quiet here. Your tips for finding time to read or routine to build up your reading stamina. I get distracted so easily if it's not evening, haha. You know what? Travel. If you know you've got a long journey, limit yourself on purpose. Like, remember, you don't need an iPod in your pocket or your phone with music on. Just bring a book with you. Bring your Kindle, bring whatever. Read. How do you discover new books and authors? Social media, the internet, recommendations from friends. Generally just people conversating online. Favourite book that you love that everyone else hates? Oh, that's very difficult because there's a few books I could probably put on that list. I love the Da Vinci Codes. Actually, in general, I like Dan Brown books. They are complete and utter trash, but they are great fun. You know, you can just read them and switch off. So, Natalie Clans reads, how weird was it to shave off your beard, and are you going to grow it back the same length? It was so weird. I hated it with a passion. It felt weird. It was not fun. I got asked for ID. I'm nearly 31 this year. And yeah, I'm growing it back. Maybe not quite to that length because I want a bit more shape to it this time, not just hanging. So, Sarah Winkle lasts. Sarah Winker Sarah Winkler asks, What are you currently reading? Do you have a book to come out this year? And what is your most anticipated? Do you have a job? What do you do? What do you do in your spare time beside read? So, what am I currently reading? I am currently reading a book called Other Words for Smoke, and it's a really enjoyable read. She's the same woman that wrote Found and Spare Parts, so that's always a good thing. Do I have a book yet to come out this year? Yes. There are a couple of books coming this year that I'm really looking forward to. The new Philip Pullman, especially, because it's Philip Pullman, come on. And do you have a job? What do you do? I am a barber by trade, and I'm also a part-time bookseller. And what do I do in my spare time besides read? I play a lot of video games, and I'm a movie geek, so that's always joyful. So, another question was sent to me via YouTube's that I don't seem to have the person. When it's one of those stressful moments when reading and focusing on a book becomes impossible, what do you do? I put the book down and calm down. They also asked me, do you not read at all or wait for it to pass? Do you consume other types of media or do you try to read regardless? I sit down, I put the book down, and I'll do something else. It's simple. That's how I do it, and it just works better for me that way, because my brain can get a little bit over-frazzled sometimes, and stress is a migraine trigger for me. So, yeah. Are there some books or series you think you would probably never read? I'm not a big Stephen King fan, so his books are always on the low of my agenda. They're always on the lowest list of my. They're always on the lowest part of my list as maybes. I just can't get into Stephen King. And what's the biggest booktube related struggle you've encountered? Getting seen. If you don't fit the pretty girl with nice studio lighting mould talking about YA, it becomes very difficult to get seen on this platform, because you do kind of wind up lost in a sea of similar people. So yeah. So that was my Q&A, guys. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and ask me any questions. I'm always here to chat, so talk to you later, guys. Bye.